The 2019 video game Outer Wilds proposes that everybody has their own tune in life. Some of them are soft-spoken and some are daring, some misunderstood. While the tunes may clash in nature, together it is possible for them to converge to create one song. This song is a celebration of togetherness, humanity, and our shared place in the universe on this small planet. It is the song of life that is shown to us gracefully throughout the span of the story. The game takes place in a galaxy where we play as an alien race known as the Hearthians, long after the previous race of aliens called the Nomai were mysteriously wiped out. Our nameless character is something of a self-insert, a voyager and an archaeologist tasked with uncovering the remains of the galaxy's rich history. During this search, they uncover a third and final alien race for which there is no name, but what most people call the Strangers. Together, these three races are the center of our story, and each alien culture is defined by their own music. For example, the Hearthians have a ramshackle collection of instruments like a plucky banjo, a simple harmonica, and they even whistle in their music as well. The Nomai were a long-standing, advanced race that take the motif of the piano, while the more sinister owls take on the haunting sound of the theremin. There is one Lietmotif throughout the course of the Outer Wilds that inhabits every song, called Travelers. This little song can be heard in isolation, in orchestral themes, with certain instruments taken in and out, and in so many other circumstances. It is this song that I will look at as part of the soundtrack as a whole, and see how it tells a story of its own, while looking at the second leitmotif, Timber Hearth, as well. While playing the game, I got this feeling of attachment to the three races anytime I heard the song, and after the bittersweet ending of the game, I get emotional simply hearing the song on Spotify. In this video, I'd like to explore how the music makes this melancholy feeling so articulate. Here I have the main theme of Outer Wilds, the most important melody in this video. What's interesting about the Outer Wilds theme is that it actually doesn't play in the game, but rather was the trailer music all the way back in 2013, serving as a kind of guideline for what the game would eventually become. One, an earnest space exploration game, but also riddled with the sort of bare-bones humanity that grounds it in place. These heartwarming instruments are the foundation of the game, and it is interesting to note that while the Outer Wilds theme sounds happy and hopeful, the main menu theme has a more melancholic feeling to balance out the game's themes. To spoil the main idea of the game, in Outer Wilds you are stuck in a 22-minute time loop before the sun explodes, only to wake up again and try to find out what happened to cause the loop. In the end, it turns out there is no way to stop the explosion of the sun. All you can do is stop the loop and go into the new universe. This is reflected beautifully in the text on the title screen, which gradually breaks apart and floats away to the somber music if you sit around for long enough, as well as the subtle hint of the exploding supernova in the background. The narrative was present even in the music, from before you even press start. With this in mind, we move on to another important motif, Timber Hearth. This is the theme of your people, and plays during the day cycle of your planet of the same name. The melody is bright and cheerful, but trails off into lone strings at the end, alluding to things being not as they seem, and the end being much closer than everyone realizes. These strings can be heard in the Timber Hearth museum theme, which brings the identity of the Hearthian people into a more cosmic and enticing sound, making you want to explore the universe, while still sounding suspiciously final. After all, how are we to know that we only have 22 minutes left to see the stars? Our character has just become a pilot, and this loop is the only time for them to explore the cosmos. These melancholic melodies reflect the sad reality of our short time in this world. With our ship in the sky, we follow the same musical dichotomy as the museum in the space theme. While we can hear the synths of space, we still get remnants of the Outer Wilds theme poking through, like the music is telling us that while we are up here in space, we are still bound to these 7 planets, as part of the Outer Wilds ventures. It promises adventure, but the solemn piano in the background tells another story. If you remember me saying earlier, the piano is the musical motif of the other alien race, the Nomai. The Nomai died hundreds of years ago to a diseased asteroid, something we only find out after countless loops of discovery. Their influence is still here, seen in their skeletons and old structures, and it's no more apparent than in the Nomai themes laden with foreboding, sad pianos that play that we find remnants of their culture. As it turns out, the loop was a technological error. The asteroid killed the Nomai before they could finish harvesting energy from the sun, energy that they would use to induce a supernova. This was to revert time by 22 minutes, theoretically living forever. Unfortunately, they died before they could make this work, and the sun eventually detonated at the end of its natural life cycle, meaning that the 22 minutes that we live in are the actual last 22 minutes of the universe, hence the ominous music used for the Nomai themes. But all hope is not lost. At the end of every time loop, we hear the theme 22 minutes. This tells us that we have a minute left to live before the sun goes supernova, and that we need to wrap up whatever it is we're doing before we die. This song is exactly 22 seconds long. However, once you solve the puzzle of the Outer Wilds and stop the time loop, this song extends into a frenzied countdown, telling us that everything we know has been flipped on its head. We no longer live in a loop, but we have to find a way out. And fast. Not all of the alien races are noble. The strangers that I mentioned earlier realized the same thing as the Nomai, that the eye was essentially the god of their universe. At first they prayed, until they saw it was inducing the end. They rejected the eye and started blocking the quantum signals sent by it, so that races such as the Nomai would not be able to find it. This curse is only broken thousands of years later by a member of the strangers called the Prisoner, a character that we find during the story that reactivated the signal from the eye, allowing for a new universe to be made. The instrument of the theremin is the instrument of the strangers and creates dread when you hear it, as the strangers do not want you in their territory. When we find the prisoner in the stranger's eco-planet in the game, there is a language barrier. Usually to translate old Nomai writings we would use Harthian technology, but in this instance we can't understand what the strangers are saying. So instead they use projection technology, tech that the main character used to tell the prisoner our story in a visual medium, all while the musical theme, Echoes of the Eye, plays in the background. This theme brings in every motif we've heard so far, mixing the Nomai theme with the Harthian instruments, as we are telling the story through our eyes, not theirs. When we tell the prisoner about our own adventures, a melancholy version of the Outer Wilds theme plays. Learning about all of this, and realizing that his thousands of years of imprisonment were not for nothing, the prisoner howls in agony, a piercing end to a beautiful song that tells the whole story through instruments alone. When we set the prisoner free, he ends his own life, with our farewell music being the Outer Wilds theme played on his own theremin. It's his way of saying that we are his friend without any words, only played by music. After all is said and done, we reach the eye of the universe. Throughout the game, by using our signal scope, if we zoom in on planets, we can hear our Harthian friends playing all of these different instruments to represent their boldly different personalities, like the harmonica, the drums, the whistle. If we fly far enough and zoom in on the Outer Wilds, all of the planets together, every single instrument joins together to create one song, and as it turns out, that song is a raw, unfiltered version of the Outer Wilds theme, which is called Travelers. That is the motif that we've been hearing all along, and it's been a diegetic track the whole time. This same song plays at the end of the universe when you sit by the fire at the eye with all of your friends, and if you've completed the whole story, the last members of the Nomai and the stranger races sit with you too, Solanum and the prisoner. They join in this song with their own theremin and piano, like we said earlier, completing the musical journey of the game with one realization, that no matter how far apart we may all be, or how different, we are all in the universe together, and we will all leave it together too.